Dame i gospodo, dobar dan i dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Liderova podcasta. S nama je danas Michalom Kedziom, partner u poljskom private equity fondu Enterprise Investors, ujedno i fondu koji je zadužen za kupnju dućana kao što su Studenca, Pan-Pek i slovenski Intersport. Michal, it's an honor to have you here and I hope the flight was safe.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So let's start from the beginning. Why did Enterprise Investors decide to invest in markets like Croatia and Slovenia?
Let me take you back a bit to our history. I mean, the company, Enterprise Investors, were basically 34 years in the market. The company was established right after the collapse of the Berlin Wall with exclusive focus on sort of new Europe or emerging Europe, if you like. We invest basically in EU accession countries post-2004, which takes you from the Baltics and Poland in the north through sort of CE down to Croatia and Slovenia in the south. We have been observing and monitoring the markets of former Yugoslavia, basically Slovenia and Croatia as EU markets, for more than 15 years now. And after it took us some time to basically understand the market, to meet proper entrepreneurs and understand the local specificities. And finally we concluded the first investment dates back to 2008, if I remember correctly. Then we bought into a pharmaceutical company called PharmaSwiss, which was present across the entire former Yugoslavia. Then subsequent investment was Slovenian Intersport, that's 2016. And later on, two very successful investments of which I'm very proud, which we still hold in the portfolio. That's 2018 vintage investments into Zagreb-based Pan-Peka and Dalmatia-based, but now present throughout the entire country, Studenca. Answering why we invested into the country, the answer is very simple, because we believe in its long-term attractiveness and long-term growth. I mean, in Croatia, the so-called convergence effect of countries of Central Europe growing faster than the major economies of Western Europe is especially visible. If you look at consumption, if you look at if you look at growth of the services sector, but also production sector, that's something what we very much like, and we also like the entrepreneurship. I mean, private equity would not exist if entrepreneurs did not exist. Somebody has to set up the companies which we buy later on. And I think I met a number of really great entrepreneurs in Croatia.
Do you think the sentiment in Croatia is changing regarding entrepreneurs? Because many of them are still the founders. So they built a company around the 90s after the war, and they're still pretty involved in the company. Do you have a sense that in a way that is changing and people are ready to let go and expand with you?
There is a specific term for that in private equity. We call it succession-driven buyout. Mm-hmm. And this is something which we've seen across the entire Central Europe. In Croatia, as you said, a lot of companies were established after the war. In Poland, after the collapse of communism, more or less the same timing, a couple of years difference, right? And those people who used to be then, 30, 40 established companies are now approaching 60, 70.
Yeah.
So either you have to give away the company to your children or whomever, or you have to sell, because otherwise people may them live forever, but we know it's not true. We've done a number of such. If you look at our recent history, there is a number of transactions which were basically driven by the needs of succession. And this is where, private equity may be a very interesting option for the entrepreneur, because with us, you can sell the entire company, but we're also very happy to partner up with entrepreneurs, especially with founders. We are in the part of the world when you very rarely see companies led by the second, third generation, right?
Yeah.
Just because not enough time has passed.
I've seen a percentage chart or something like that, a couple of months ago. So how the possibility of running the company that stays in the family business just drops dramatically while successors take over, and it usually vanishes after the third or the fourth one.
That's very few companies live long enough until the third generation.
Yeah,
that's what history shows. But again, I mean, it's one cannot force the children to do whatever the daddy or mama wants, right? I mean, these are where the times of slavery are gone. So I think it's very often I've seen in my life where the second generation simply didn't want to engage in the business, right? And I think then responsible founders are seeking for other ways of succession where people like myself may come into play.
When we're talking about people like you and funds like yours, what are the biggest challenges while buying companies in this regional market? So, for example, let's say Croatia and Slovenia, and let's say Studenca, Pan-Peka, Intersport.
Well, frankly speaking, it's not much different than when I buy companies in, say, Poland or Romania.
So it's the same sentiment.
To be honest, I mean, no, these are the same challenges. I mean, in entrepreneurial-led companies, very often founders are, omnipotent, right? They decide about the strategy and about the color of the wall in the toilet, right? They take all the decisions. So basically, when you take the company from the founder, usually, the founder CEO is usually impossible to be replaced by just one person. So you set up a management board, there's a separate finance director, separate head of sales, head of production, head of procurement, head of whatever, and basically you have to set up a team which then builds up a structure. So that's basically what we specialize in, we help the companies grow from founder-led, extremely agile, extremely quick in decision making, but having certain limitations as founders, although are amazing people, but they're still human beings. They have the limitations, right? Especially in terms of time. And what we usually do, we build a group of people called management that enters the company, takes over and grows. And I think Studenca is a perfect example, right? We bought a company from a very successful founder who set up a great company, and we took it to a whole another level. We bought the company that had less than 400 stores. We just exceeded 1,200.
Yeah, that's actually my next question regarding Studenca. You've really been aggressive with the expansion. You've been aggressive with the acquisitions, opening new stores, connecting the digital world of retail to the physical world of retail. What's the plan here? Because the expansion is too large to be manageable for a long time. So I'm guessing there's an exit strategy coming up soon. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think in Studenca, Studenca has always been built on, that's how we planned it from day one. It has been based on 3 pillars. One thing is organic growth, basically opening of new stores, and now you can shop with us in Zagreb. You're welcome to do that. On the other hand, we kept consolidating the market and buying other smaller competitors to add to the Studenca story. And the third pillar was digitalization. We have just set up a couple of years ago an office in Zagreb, which already grew to 70 people, to my surprise, during yesterday's supervisory board. But this is truly amazing. I mean, it's I have to say that the level of digitalization in pricing strategy, promotional strategy, in terms of securing new location is really mind blowing and eye opening. What these people have done, it's a great kudos to them. In terms of growth, I think we went through a very, very detailed exercise of so-called white space analysis, meaning we analyzed how many Studenca stores you can actually place in Croatia, right? And as I said, by now we've just crossed the line of 1,200. This exercise we've done at one of the major management consultancies gave us a result of over 3,000 spots still to be covered by Studenca. So I think there is enough work for the management for the next decade in terms of filling in these spots. With small format, it's a bit different than with large format. I think we address different shopping mission, different shopping purpose, and I can easily imagine on the one street 2 Studenca and 2 separate sides of the street, and I bet both will be profitable because they just address different needs. Having said that, we will not stay with the company for the next 10 years. As a private equity, we always buy to sell. Our money have, as I call it, expiry date. Having said that, we're definitely closer to the sort of end of the investment horizon than the beginning, but it doesn't change the overall mood of we are continue focusing on building value. We just had a supervisory board yesterday, set up sort of new plans, new projects for this year. I'm very optimistic about the performance.
How does the current macroeconomic state of European Union affect your investments?
I think overall, if you look at share macro, Central Europe is doing relatively better than biggest economies of European Union, Germany being the preeminent example here. In speaking of my portfolio in Croatia, we're in sort of basic services and basic products, right? Where we sell groceries and we produce frozen bread in Pan-Peka.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the parts of the economy which I would say usually are not affected by the cycle, and we see it in the performance. I mean, last year was a year of record growth both for Pan-Peka actually and for Studenca if you look at EBITDA and sales. So short answer to your question is we do not really see any adverse effects. I would say quite on the contrary. I think we have better times ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Are you satisfied with the business results made by enterprise investors in 2023?
Overall, I think it was yet another good year for the fund. I mean, we made 4 new investments, which is quite a nice result for us. We exited 2 companies, and we sort of continue to deploy money and continue to be very bullish about the economies of Central Europe. In our business, you have to buy and sell at the same time. So every macro situation brings certain challenges, right? There are years where you prefer to be a buyer. There are years when you prefer to be a seller. But as I said, in a private equity business, regardless what's the mood, you have to do both. So you just have to do it in a smart way.
What do you think, how will the future look when we talk about retail and all the digital trends and all the IT companies growing, combining forces with the retail companies? For example, Studenca did it with Infobip. What's the future?
I think, definitely there are certain trends which are irreversible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the advantage that retailers are getting via introducing certain IT solutions in terms of management of the shelf, management of margins, pricing, and so on, with all due respect to humanity, human beings without computers cannot really challenge that. And this is all still ahead of the AI revolution, which is very, very quickly coming here, and which will, I think, do yet another robust wave of changes. The other aspect is present for very many years, but especially in grocery retail, not yet massively developed, the e-commerce part, which unlike other parts of retail, like sporting goods, for instance, where e-commerce is really a very massive part of our revenue pie. In grocery, sort of adoption of e-commerce for very many reasons. It's a topic for another podcast, but I think for very many reasons adoption has been a bit slower. But it's an irreversible trend. So I think it's if you want to stay ahead of the curve, if you want to stay competitive, and basically be in a group of winners, it's there is no other way. You have to enter into digital world.
You mentioned artificial intelligence. Do you see it as a fluke or something that's gonna stay as a ever-growing trend?
To be honest, I don't think there is a question if, there's a question when. This is yet another step in, we used to be counting using fingers, then we had computers, and then we had AI, and I think that's where we're coming from. I would rather, a bit amend the question, if you like. I mean, the question is, how fast will be the adoption, and what exactly, and in what areas are we going to use it, right? Because simple answer is in every area, but I think that the trick of adoption and usability is yet ahead of us.
Are you going to invest in the AI sector?
Well, that's, we have to follow the market. That's our job, right? I mean, the old rule of private equity is follow the money. And I would be extremely surprised if we don't.
And this brings us to the end. What kind of advice would you give to Croatian entrepreneurs that have good businesses that are expanding, maybe family-owned, maybe not, regarding collaborating with private equity funds or maybe selling to private equity funds?
I will not be original in what I say. I think, first of all, meet us, talk, and see how we work. I think there are a lot of myths about private equity. We're not barbarians at the gate. We don't drink blood and so on. And I think we're very happy to get engaged, get to know each other, and basically explain our story. So that's the first step. And the second step is collaborating with private equity imposes certain, from a legal perspective, you call it corporate governance, but from a real life perspective, a certain discipline. We don't have 1,000 years to conquer the market. We have a couple of years, and around the 5th anniversary, I usually scratch my head and seek exit. So that's, but for somebody it may be bad because it's going outside the area of comfort and suddenly we have to run faster. But for some founders, and these I would love to meet, it's actually, yet another boost to grow faster and to conquer. And these founders I'd love to meet.
Michal, it's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise.
And I hope we get to record a second episode anytime soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Dame i gospodo, bila je ovo još jedna epizoda Liderova podcasta. S nama je, kao što ste već čuli i vidjeli, bio Michalom Kedziom. Do sljedećeg gledanja, kao što već znate, svaka nova epizoda izlazi svaki novi ponedjeljak. Pozdrav!